Good morning. I'm Zachary Keys.
And I'm Janae Norman. Here are the top 5 things to know this Wednesday. Number 1, the so-called Republican revolt over tariffs.
President Trump insists he's not bluffing about imposing tariffs on all imports from Mexico, despite stiff opposition from members of his own party. ABC News has learned the administration is considering whether to declare a state of emergency to justify the tariffs.
Meanwhile, this morning, President Trump is wrapping up his 3-day state visit to the UK by marking the 75th anniversary of D-Day. He's attending ceremonies with Queen Elizabeth and more than a dozen other world leaders.
Number 2, a major development in the Parkland, Florida school massacre. The former deputy, who critics called the coward of Broward County, has been arrested on criminal charges.
School resource officer Scott Peterson was seen outside doing nothing while 17 people were killed in the school. He now faces 11 criminal charges for not taking action.
If convicted, he faces nearly 100 years in prison. His attorney says Peterson is being used as a scapegoat.
On to number 3 now. The Heartland is bracing for more rain, with major rivers already approaching record levels.
Towns near Kansas City have been flooded by the Missouri River. The water is 6 feet deep in some areas. On the other side of the state, the Mississippi River is now at the second highest level on record and has not yet crested.
Meanwhile, in Arkansas, the National Guard has been working to shore up levees along the Arkansas River.
We head to Utah for number 4 and a health scare at a public pool.
46 people were sent to the hospital after being exposed to large amounts of chlorine at a public pool outside Provo, Utah. Many of the victims were children.
Everyone is expected to be okay. The problem was blamed on bad pump.
And finally, number 5, a pricey fender bender for comedian Tracy Morgan.
Photos obtained by TMZ show he was involved in a minor crash in Manhattan while driving his brand new Bugatti. He was seen banging on the other driver's Honda, shouting, $2 million car, just bought it.
The driver says she didn't know who Morgan was until people started taking pictures, and he'd just gotten that car. Let's get right to today's big story. President Trump is wrapping up a 3-day state visit before heading to Ireland.
The president kicked off the 75th anniversary D-Day commemorations with Queen Elizabeth and more than a dozen other world leaders. It follows a day packed with pageantry, protests, and politics. ABC's Jordan Phelps has been covering the state visit in London. Good morning, Jordan.
Good morning, Janae and Zachary. Well, the president has clearly been enjoying himself over these 3 days of festivities here in the UK, from that grand welcome by the Queen at Buckingham Palace to the state banquet to last night's glitzy dinner at the U.S. ambassador's residence. There's, of course, been a heavy dose of politics as well. The president meeting with the outgoing Prime Minister Theresa May and not holding back and offering his opinions on Brexit and the upcoming race for Prime Minister. But today, the president's agenda is really moving on to commemorating the 75th anniversary of that very consequential D-Day battle that is credited with changing the tide of World War II. The president today in Portsmouth, which was, of course, a critical launching point for that battle. And then tomorrow, he actually travels to Normandy, where he will pay his respects to those who paid the ultimate price that day and also celebrate with some still living veterans who will be there for the ceremonies. The president completing a pilgrimage that's been done by almost every modern U.S. president since Jimmy Carter in going to Normandy. The president will now add his own voice to those tributes. And the president also today traveling to Ireland. He'll meet with the Irish Prime Minister and stay at one of his Trump properties. Back to you, Janae and Zachary.
Our thanks to Jordan for that report. And now to the so-called Republican revolt against President Trump's plan to slap new tariffs on products from Mexico. Overnight, ABC News learned the Trump administration is now considering whether to declare a national emergency to justify the tariffs. One lawmaker calls them a tax increase and would wreak havoc on the U.S. economy.
This morning, there's a growing confrontation on tariffs between President Trump and his own party.
Well, there is not much support in my conference for tariffs, that's for sure.
The president is promising to slap a 5% tariff on all Mexican goods starting Monday unless he's satisfied with Mexico's attempts to stem the flow of migrants crossing the border. The tariff could rise to 25% in the coming months. Top Republicans are now warning the Trump administration not to move forward with the plan, fearing the impact on American consumers.
If we go to a 25% tariff, that's a whole different story. It could hurt our economy badly. I don't think.
Republican lawmakers are now suggesting they may have a veto-proof majority to stop the president. During his trip to London, the president said the effort to block the tariffs by Republicans would be, quote, foolish.
There's nothing more important than borders. I've had tremendous Republican support. I have a 94% approval rating as of this morning in the Republican Party. That's an all-time record. Can you believe that? Isn't that something? I love records.
The tariffs would increase the cost of consumer products from Mexico, items from washing machines to produce like avocados. Chipotle says it could cost the company $15 million a year, likely forcing it to raise menu prices. One economist says the tariffs could amount to one of the largest tax increases in decades.
This 5% tariff will, on top of the other tariffs that the president has either enacted or threatened, add up to be one of the largest tax increases in the last 30 years.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi now suggesting Congress should act first to prevent tariffs from taking effect.
The taxes, I don't think that they make sense, so I don't think they will stand.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer predicts the president won't go through with this threat.
I believe that he will back off when faced with the opposition among business, among his own Republicans, and when he sees what a dumb move he has made.
But overnight, the president firing back on Twitter, calling Schumer a creep and saying the senator would rather have our country fail with drugs and immigration than give Republicans a win. But he gave Mexico bad advice. No bluff. The statement coming as the so-called Republican revolt gains steam.
The President of the United States is a very smart man. Been known to play with fire, but not live hand grenades.
High-level talks with Mexican officials are expected today in Washington. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve has indicated it may cut interest rates if any trade disputes slow down the economy. Now to a deepening mystery about the deaths of 3 Americans in the Dominican Republic. 41-year-old Miranda Sharp Werner was found dead at her hotel on May 25th. That's 5 days before both Edward Holmes and Cynthia Ann Day were also found dead in their room at the same hotel. Officials say all 3 died of respiratory failure. The U.S. State Department says it is not aware of any connections between the deaths and that it's monitoring the investigations of them. The Trump administration has announced new restrictions for Americans traveling to Cuba, including a ban on cruise ships. The new rules are aimed at cutting off cash to the communist government while rolling back Obama-era efforts to restore normal relations. And they also apply to group tours and most private planes and boats. Cruise companies were caught off guard by this news, and officials say anyone who has already paid for a trip can still go. A dog trapped for 3 weeks in a cave near Tampa is now back with its owner. A hiker heard Sally whimpering, but he couldn't get to her, so he posted a plea for help on social media, and that prompted people from around Florida to join in trying to help him, including a stage rigging company. They were finally able to get Sally out of the 20-foot hole, and we're glad to announce she's doing okay. Welcome back now to that major development in the Parkland, Florida school massacre. The former deputy, who critics have called the coward of Broward County, has been arrested on criminal charges. Officer Scott Peterson was seen outside doing nothing while 17 people were killed in that school. ABC's Andrea Fujii has more on the charges he faces.
17 children and staff were killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida last year when a gunman stormed the school. And now the man who was the school resource officer at the time has been arrested for not confronting the shooter. The Florida State Attorney says former Broward Sheriff's Deputy Scott Peterson was fired and now faces 11 criminal charges in connection with his lack of response to the situation. Investigators say Peterson refused to investigate the source of the gunshots, retreated during the active shooting, and directed other law enforcement who arrived to stay 500 feet away from the building. In an NBC interview last year, Peterson questioned his actions.
I mean, knowing what I know today, I would have been in that building in a heartbeat.
Peterson's arrest comes after a 15-month investigation into the actions of law enforcement following the shooting. Another deputy was also fired for his inaction.
Peterson's charges include child neglect and culpable negligence. If convicted, he faces nearly 100 years in prison. In New York, Andrea Fujii, Zachary and Janae, back to you.
Peterson's lawyer says his client has been made as a scapegoat, and he argues, by definition, Peterson cannot be prosecuted for child neglect because he was a law enforcement officer, not a parent or a caregiver. Now to some shocking new evidence about homelessness in the city of Los Angeles and its surrounding county. The area has seen a sharp increase in homelessness over the last year, and many who are new to being homeless say economic hardship is the reason they're living on the street. ABC's Brad Melke has more.
Hey guys, yeah, these are alarming numbers coming out of Los Angeles. After a year in which homelessness actually declined a little bit, officials are now saying the numbers have skyrocketed. In 1 year, homelessness has risen 16% in Los Angeles, 12% in the larger LA area. You think about that, that is 6,000 new people living in shelters or on the street. And it's not just LA either. This is happening all over Southern California. ABC's chief national correspondent Matt Gutman is based in LA, and I asked him what kind of difference this has made on the city.
It's pretty significant. I've been in LA for about 4 years, and you can tell the sprawl of what essentially are shanty towns across Los Angeles. So Skid Row has become very, very populated, and people essentially set up tents. One of the problems with Los Angeles has been an infestation of rats, which are allegedly spreading disease, possibly even typhus. I mean, things that seem very, 17th, 18th century are actually affecting downtown LA.
I was going to say, that's like Middle Ages stuff.
Exactly.
Now, it's worth noting, in Los Angeles, the average rental price of a home has risen 75% in the last decade. Matt says that is not a coincidence. It is easier than ever in LA to find yourself with nowhere to turn. We'll have more on Start Here later this morning. Listen on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. Janae, Zachary?
Thanks to Brad for that report. Now to an SNL star who's about to make an impression on a one-room schoolhouse on an island in Massachusetts. When there are 12 people total in the school and its graduating class of 1, what celebrity on earth would possibly agree to give the commencement address? Well, the answer may surprise you. Our own Will Gans has the story.
This grad season, stars showing up to the most prestigious educational institutions to deliver passionate commencement addresses. Ellie Kemper at Princeton, John Krasinski at Brown, Oprah at Colorado College. But no celeb would show up to this tiny schoolhouse on an island off Massachusetts to give a speech to the graduating class of 1, right? Wrong. Actress Jenny Slate, set to address the solo graduating 8th grader at Cuddy Hunk Elementary School next weekend. The SNL alum played Mona Lisa Saperstein on Parks and Rec.
Actually, that reminds me, boss man, I need to leave early today because my shrink got me and him tickets to a Pitbull concert. And I already committed to that.
Slate has connections to the area and agreed to give the speech when asked by a family friend. She's even reached out to Gwen to get to know her before the big day. Last year, a retired astronaut gave the commencement address to Gwen's older brother, Carter.
The one school teacher/principal says that the school is expecting a packed house at graduation and thinks that most of the town will be there for Gwen's big day. Pretty cool story there. Coming up, we've got a major keeler. DJ Khaled opens up about his music and how becoming a father influenced his new album. That coming up after this.
Here's what to watch out for today. A federal judge will hear arguments on an ACLU motion to sanction the Trump administration for concealing a Republican gerrymandering expert's draft memo surrounding the decision to add a citizenship question to the 2020 census.
President Trump finishes up his state visit to the UK and heads to Ireland, where he'll meet with the Prime Minister there before traveling to France for a ceremony on the anniversary of the D-Day invasion. And Game 3 of the NBA Finals tips off tonight. The Raptors and the Warriors are even at 1 game apiece as the series moves to Oakland. And the Warriors will be without star player Kevin Durant, who is recovering from a calf injury.
Plus, don't forget to tune into the debrief for an update on all our top stories and the briefing room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics. There is no doubt this morning that songwriter and recording executive DJ Khaled has what it takes to be the one.
The larger-than-life hip-hop mogul is bringing some of the industry's top names together for a brand new album that celebrates his family, both inside and outside of the studio. The larger-than-life mogul,
hey, yo, what up?
Who is behind some of the decade's biggest summertime anthems, classics like All I Do Is Win, I'm the One, featuring Justin Bieber,
When I'm with you, all I get is wild thoughts.
in Wild Thoughts alongside Rihanna. And now, once again, Khaled is bringing music royalty to a new album called Father of Assad.
If they love me or they hate me, it don't make no difference.
From Cardi B to Travis Scott,
looking back at my life make my heart race.
In the late Nipsey Hussle. This work blends fatherhood and hip-hop, a nod to the home team, wife Nicole and their 2-year-old son.
Man, I think the last time we linked up with you, we had just had Assad.
Yes.
How has life changed since that?
Oh, man, my life changed incredibly. My son showed me what real love is. It's the purest, it's the holiest, and it's the most incredible love I've ever experienced in my life. Being a father now, to me, it's like the highest honor. That's why I named my album Father of Assad.
Khaled has become one of the most visible artists, not just through music.
Bless up.
But by harnessing social media, especially Snapchat, to build a brand.
That nightline.
Yes, sir.
You know it's serious when you're in that nightline.
You came in here snapping, man.
Yeah.
Any idea that it would become what it has become?
No, I didn't plan my reaction on social media. I definitely didn't plan it. And it's just me being myself. It's just me being Khaled. You know what I'm saying? That's just who I am.
Khaled was born to Palestinian parents in New Orleans with big dreams and the patience to achieve them.
How do you instill the same kind of qualities in your son that you've learned through this process, through this struggle? Obviously, he's not going to grow up the same way you grew up.
I'm teaching him, when he gets older, how hard mommy and daddy work. The same way I was raised. My mom and dad raised me at their work. But they loved me so much. When I grew up, I knew what it was to work hard. I knew what it was to be a young man early. So this is the studio. This is my personal studio.
I want to talk about the process. When I listen to one of your tracks and I hear it all come together, I'm like, where did this start from?
It starts off, for me, production. Making sure I'm in love with the production of the music part with no lyrics yet, just music. You know, ideas, like Wild Thoughts, that's an idea. Saying for me to come up and say, hey, I should flip this classic. But how I'm gonna flip a classic and make it a classic?
For the first time, baby Assad is now part of the process. At just 2 years old, he's named the executive producer on the project.
And Assad will help you kind of figure that out?
You know the hits. He'll come in here and he bob his head, smile, put his hands up.
Does it still touch you when someone says not only that they look up to you, but that you've had a positive impact?
Oh, man, it's so beautiful, man. Like, I just immediately tell them God is great. And if I could help you inspire and motivate, you know, through my actions, thank you. But I want to let you know that you inspire me as well.
Fun story. Good job with that one.
Thank you.
That's it from us today. Have a great Wednesday.
Take care.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.